What if we told you that it now turns out it looks like Disney was afraid of the U.S. Supreme Court? And that's why Bob Iger decided to shower President Donald J. Trump, not with hippos, but with money. Lots and lots of money. $16 million of money. Perhaps to protect ABC News and the rest of the news industry from a negative decision they thought would come down from the highest court in the land. Hello folks, welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we are happy every single time we have the opportunity to spend time with you. An attitude of gratitude every time you click one of these videos. Folks, we recommend, by the way, that if you enjoy our content, consider going over to our Patreon, where we are able to cover things in an even more spicy and in-depth way. It's www.patreon.com/WDW Pro. We think you'll have a good time over there as we continue to grow. And the worries, the fears of Disney continue to grow, as apparently CEO Bob Iger was terrified of the chance that the ABC News lawsuit could go all the way up to the Supreme Court and what would happen if it did. Today we're telling you all about it. Click the like button, and here we go. All right, folks, out of Fox News today, we're going to tell you why Disney apparently, the reason that they were willing to pay President Trump and infuriate George Stephanopoulos is that, according to sources, Disney is terrified of the Supreme Court of the United States. So let me say it again. That's what this video is going to be about. Disney is apparently terrified of going in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll get there. All right, from Fox News by Joseph A. Wolfson. ABC inks new deal with George Stephanopoulos as anchor cost networks millions in Trump defamation suit. Stephanopoulos and ABC News were forced to issue an apology and handed Trump a whopping $15 million. Whopping, Stewie. Whopping. It says ABC News has inked a new deal with its longtime anchor, George Stephanopoulos, as he cost the network millions in its lawsuit settlement with President-elect Trump. According to reports, Stephanopoulos, who reportedly made up to $18 million per year in his previous contract, was at the center of a defamation suit that was settled with Trump last week. But reports say the timing, and this is important, this really matters here. Reports say the timing between the settlement and his new contract were coincidental. ABC News, which is Disney, did not immediately respond to Fox News. Can't believe it. The extension to Stephanopoulos' contract followed reports of alleged behind-the-scenes drama, and for our Canadians out there, drama, at the Disney-owned network. Variety reported that Stephanopoulos was blindsided by his boss's decision to settle the defamation lawsuit and that he was unhappy with the result. We've also heard that he was apoplectic, furious, angry. Network insiders had cast uncertainty whether the settlement would impact Stephanopoulos' future at ABC, according to Variety's report. However, hours after that story was published, the LA Times broke the news of the anchor's extension at ABC. So Stephanopoulos probably had a pre-scheduled contract extension that was already set to go, but that had, it came a week, unfortunately for Disney, a week after they weekly settled with President Trump. Now, let's talk about the Supreme Court, because this is not one you anticipate. But this is out of Breitbart. It says, report, Disney executives feared Florida jury would side with Trump in ABC News defamation case. But I promise you, this is not the headline I would have chosen. Clearly, wait till you hear what's in this article. This is by David Ng. The Walt Disney Company has come under intense media scrutiny following the studio's decision to settle President-elect Donald Trump's defamation lawsuit against ABC News for more than $15 million. Several claims made by unnamed sources in recent reports shed some light on Disney CEO Iger's ultimate decision to avoid a trial and settle with the incoming president. Here are three of them, and the second matters most. So you know what? I'll read 1, 3, then 2. Save the best for last. First, and by the way, as we read these, panel, as we read these are the same attorneys, the same legal team we believe that helped them lose in Florida. So this might be a little bit of shell shock. These attorneys that lost like $1 trillion, according to Legal Mindset, $1 trillion case over a century with the Walt Disney World Resort losing its government powers over the parental rights and education bill in Florida. Though that same legal team might have said, you know what? We've had enough of Florida. Like, we're good. Let's not fight him in Florida anymore. We're tired. We're sick of that state.
You know, I noticed that the big name is not attached here that we know because of Vash. Daniel Petrocelli is not out there making big statements on this case.
Wouldn't you love it if Petrocelli was like, guys, can we please not do another Florida case?
I'm so tired, Bob.
Disney execs feared that a Florida jury would side with Trump, given that Florida voters overwhelmingly chose Trump in the November election. Pause for a moment. If this is true, then what I said the other day is true. That I thought Disney waited until after the election to decide whether to settle this case. If that first reason is true, then Disney was waiting.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense because they have been waiting to see where the wind blows on a lot of things that appear to be coming out the last couple of days that we've covered here on this channel.
I can tell them where the wind blows, and it's their CEO's mouth. Such a jury would have potentially awarded him a sum exceeding what it would cost to settle. And that comes from the New York Times. So for those of you out there who say, oh no, pros on Breitbart, this is from New York Times. I'm using Breitbart because they did a wonderful job of combining all these reports together, so I don't have to go bouncing from one article to the other. All right, let's drop down to number 3. Number 3, George Stephanopoulos, who repeated false claims against Trump on Good Morning America, that's also Disney, ignited the whole legal battle, is said to have been blindsided by Disney's decision and could soon leave the network, according to a Variety report. Now, that's interesting because we just read Fox where they said that his contract has been extended. But as I said, I would say still that probably was a pre-scheduled extension. The prior contract ended and a new one began, and that was probably already set to happen. So whether or not he stays or leaves, I don't think is greatly impacted by that. Probably, right? I'll give you a comparison. It's not a great one, but it's in a similar vein to when a teacher returns the next year to work at a school, right? Their contract just renews, scheduled to renew, but that's no guarantee that, for example, if a female teacher gets pregnant, she may go on maternity leave and then not come back. She may choose to just retire. The idea that the contract renewed automatically at the end of the school year, same thing I think with George Stephanopoulos, where probably he just had his other contract end and it was scheduled to be renewed. That's what I think. I'm speculating there. Now to the big one. This is so funny. This is hilarious. Okay. Disney lawyers were worried. Who's the lawyer again, Vash?
Daniel Petrocelli.
Right. So I don't know if it's him this time, but he should be shell shocked from Florida. So
yes.
And he often represents Disney. So if it's him, I love the idea that they were worried about this. Disney lawyers were worried that if the case made it to the Supreme Court of the United States of America, it would encourage the justices of the United States of America to revisit the landmark New York Times versus Sullivan ruling, which gives news outlets extraordinary protections from defamation cases, according to a Wall Street Journal report. In other words, it is being said now that Disney wanted to avoid facing off with President Trump and decided to settle because they were worried that the Supreme Court would reverse the decision that basically allows news media and news organizations to act in libelous, perhaps, ways towards famous figures. And they wanted to protect that at all costs. That's from the Wall Street Journal. Jonas, I know you've got something to show. Panel, your thoughts on this. I mean, I never thought we'd be to the point where Disney is trying to protect left-leaning rights that are not from the Constitution, but which are secured from perhaps liberal-leaning eras of the Supreme Court. And thus, they're willing to pay Donald Trump millions of dollars to make sure that the Supreme Court doesn't go back and revisit things. This is wild.
Yeah, this is fascinating because the situation that we found ourselves in is the media for the last it feels like it's been forever, has been acting like a chicken with its head cut off, and somehow that chicken's head is also on fire. It's been amazing to watch them losing their minds over the smallest things. So when he gets an extra scoop of ice cream when other people get one scoop of ice cream. I've referenced this story several times. It's a real story where there was an entire news cycle dedicated to how many scoops of ice cream were on the table, according to how many people were there. Yes, the media did cover this like maniacs. And now we have a situation where they have gone so far that no one cares when they bring up actual problems. Trump is not a perfect candidate in any way, but he now has a mandate, and they're going to have to cover President Trump in a way where they're going to have to shift their own Overton window, because their own Overton window has been so out of whack for so long that the entire people are in a different place than they are. And these large news organizations are not meant to accommodate such a small number of people by their business model. So if they want to exist in a form where they're on broadcast television and cable television, they need to be serving more of the audience. And they cannot do this if they're going to be sitting here worried about covering the president in a way that they might genuinely believe that this stuff is true, but they can't say it on television because it's not factually true. The thing that I wanted to bring up, and I want to thank Vash for providing me with this link from Variety. George Stephanopoulos sets a new deal at ABC News amid blowback over Trump settlement agreement by Michael Schneider. Interesting. Is that the same Mike Schneider who works for the AP? This little bit of a snippet here was fascinating. News should end speculation that the well-paid Snuffleupagus was on his way out at Disney. Along with every other news organization, looks to trim high overhead pricey talent deals, and industry source with knowledge of the deal said the length of the extension was shorter than a typical on-air talent pact, which is another sign of the times for the TV news business. So they're providing two pieces of information here at the same time. One, they're saying he's not renewed for as long as he should be, but they're also giving the hand wave reason for why they think that is at the exact same moment. Whether or not we believe that is a matter of debate here. I think that they're probably giving the hand wave to the Democrat Party, which George Stephanopoulos is definitely a part of. But I think in reality, this guy is a lawsuit risk. If he does another one, I don't see any reason why they would want to keep him aboard.
Well, there was some talk in the trades recently that George was apparently told multiple times not to use certain language before that segment, and he, allegedly disregarded that. If you scroll down actually to the next paragraph in this article, it's very fascinating because Variety is attributing the decision to pay out this $50 million settlement on Bob Iger himself. So when we say Disney executives in the previous articles, I'm reading that as it's Bob Iger who thought that, they should square this away, which is very, very fascinating.
Okay, you combine that, Vash, with the Wall Street Journal report. This was done in order to avoid the Supreme Court of the United States striking down a ruling precedent from earlier. That is fascinating that Bob Iger himself may have said, we want to protect the ability of the news media to say outrageous things about public figures. So therefore, we're not going to go through with this. We'll pay President Trump $16 million. And Iger, we believe, is absolutely no fan of President Trump. And by the way, Elon Musk seems to be working hand in hand with President Trump. And Iger surely is not a fan of Elon Musk. So this must have been a big deal to Iger for him to say, we're not going to do something that puts Disney at fault of having caused the Supreme Court of the United States to rule against news organizations. And it's funny to me too, because news organizations are quite livid at Disney. So
yes, and I believe Justice Gorsuch Alito and Thomas have all said, or at least intimated, that they'd be, willing to look at this kind of libel laws and how big media has been protected by these laws when talking about big figures and so forth, and how they would want to address that going forward. So, I think now looking at it in this article, Bob Iger may be having some hesitation about what might happen with that case going forward. It definitely squares with how the justices have ruled in the past and their comments and opinions about other cases referring to that law.
Well, it's a funny thing, ABC's building now that they're in, the View and all that, it's in the Bob A. Iger building. It's going to be funny, if down there at near Mar-a-Lago, if there's a Trump library in the future, and it's the what would you say, the Trump Presidential Library, brought to you by Bob Iger.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
Isn't it?
How about the Willow Bay wing of the Robert A. Iger?
Okay,
we need
Willow
two
Bay.
shower heads in there.
You got to explain Willow Bay. People, that's a deep cut joke.
Willow Bay is the spouse of Bob Iger, and I believe she was an ABC News anchor for a very long time, and now she's a professor somewhere, I'm sure, denying people's rights to voice their opinions at some college now. But Willow Bay, American model and journalist, born 1963.
The President Donald J. Trump Library and Museum, a Willow Bay property. I don't know.
Oh, perfect.
Willow Bay Lake.
The Donald J. Trump Presidential Library, inspired by Bob Iger.
Maybe they can put it by that awful looking Polynesian DVC. We'll put the Donald J. Trump Presidential Library in Disney.
It would be a much better use of the land. I was there yesterday. It was like Hawaii Marriott.
Oh, it's terrible. It's
terrible.
We need to cover that soon.
We do, because there are $1,000 rooms that are basically no larger than some college dorm rooms in probably Japan.
Yeah.
That they're charging, and it's outrageous.
Point of correction, I was wrong. Willow Bay was on NBC and then CNN. So
well, at least there's less political connections. And put another one in the can, folks. A video of excellence has been birthed into existence, and you were there to witness it. Thank you for participating. We hope you had a good time. Folks, it's a great time anytime we get to share time with you, and we mean it. The only thing additional we ask, on the way out the door, consider clicking the like button. Share, subscribe, click it and stick it to those pesky algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. And oh, by the way, if you would be so kind, perhaps share this out on your favorite social media platforms. Folks, we've got all kinds of content coming your way. If you are interested in going even beyond all of that, well, there's a Pro Store, and you can always find those items directly below the video you're watching. The Pro Store, it's a cool place to check out for items that, well, definitely Disney and the rest are not going to sell you, but we're happy to do so. Until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.